Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. With greatest of pleasure, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to the national debate, an event awaited by all with keen anticipation and interest. I also, in the same breath, would like to welcome Ms. Kajol, Ms. Bharatiya, Sri Anupam Kher, Sri Suhel Seth, Sri Randeep Singh Surjiwala, and our own Ashok Ganguly, and also moderator Sri Mukul Kesavan to Calcutta Club, and hope that they have in their arsenal enough explosives to keep us captivated and enthralled. The topic, in the opinion of the House, tolerance is the new intolerance, by itself has already captured our imagination, and I have no doubt that all attending this show are expected loads of fireworks. There are many among the speakers who have lately captured our attention through the media for their outspokenness, and we hope to catch a glimpse of that fire on the stage today. May the most convincing arguments rather than our personal beliefs carry the day. Thank you, all of you.
Welcome everybody. It's a great privilege to be at the Calcutta Club to host and moderate a debate as apposite and appropriate and timely as this. One of the great privileges of being here is to actually have with me this extraordinary panel of speakers who will actually conduct the debate while I basically act as a glorified timekeeper. I'd first like to introduce on stage the person who will lead for the proposition, Mr. Suhel Seth. Suhel, as you know, is a son of this city. He's a man of many parts, a writer, an actor, a business genius, an ornament of corporate India. Please welcome Suhel Seth. Leading the charge for the opposition is the very distinguished Justice Ashok Ganguly, who is a great judge, a former judge of the Supreme Court, someone who has chaired the Bengal Human Rights Commission, and is therefore, in a sense, completely suited to intervene in a debate about tolerance and intolerance, which is the debate we have today. Please welcome Justice Ashok Ganguly. Going second for the proposition is perhaps the person with the greatest star power in today's evening, Kajol, an actor who exploded in prominence in the 1990s and is arguably the most extraordinary actress to emerge in the turn of the century in Bombay, someone who won a record number of Filmfare Awards. Please welcome Kajol. Going second for the opposition is Randeep Surjiwala, who is a lawyer and a spokesperson for the Congress, who's used to the cut and thrust of debate, appearing as he does to defend his party nightly on our television channels. Please welcome Randeep Surjiwala. Rounding up the team for the proposition is one of the most distinguished, versatile, and durable actors of both the Hindi and the world cinema, Anupam Kher, someone who has been at the very heart of the current debate on political tolerance and intolerance, and who brings to this event the urgency of now and, in a sense, the leadership of one side of this argument. Going up last against the proposition is Bharatiya, who leads debates like this every night on television, who is a pioneer as a television reporter, journalist, and editor, who has, in a sense, created a new role to aspire to within television journalism. Please welcome Barkha Dutt. It's unusual for a moderator to actually frame a debate, and I'm not going to try and do it because I have six speakers who have ideas of their own. But since there's a nice enigmaticness to this proposition, tolerance is the new intolerance, let me just say a few brief words on how I understand it, which of course won't constrain the speakers, who, as I said, will interpret this in any way they want. If I was arguing this for the proposition, I would argue that the invocation of tolerance today, in the last few months, within the political context of India, has been a rhetorical ploy to suppress an alternative and emerging point of view that doesn't fit with the liberal pieties of the politically correct. I would argue that a bunch of isolated and aberrant incidents have been stitched into, with some political imagination, a sinister pattern, and this, in a sense, is used to exclude legitimate political voices that arguably won the last general election. If I was arguing this for the opposition, I would argue that the call for tolerance is never merely rhetorical. That the reason why so many people have made a case against the present political climate is because they believe an attempt is being made to rig the political discourse of the Republic in a majoritarian way, that there is a sense in which you have a state which acts as a patron for civil society movements and individuals who try and shut down what India has always been known for, which is a form of almost anarchic pluralism. But that's enough from my side. Let's get straight to the event. Let me call upon Anupam Kher to speak for the proposition. Let me just take a second to say that the rules of this debate are basically that everybody gets 10 minutes to speak. At the end of 7 minutes, there'll be, sorry, my mistake. At the end of 7 minutes, there'll be a bell. My mistake. The person who's going to state the case for the proposition, starting up, will be, proposition is Suhel.
See how tolerant we are of simple mistakes in life. Mr. Chairman, sir, ladies and gentlemen, this is the temple of tolerance. Look at what all Bengal has tolerated and continues to tolerate with such finesse. I think too much is being said about tolerance. I mean, we've tolerated the communists. We continue to tolerate a diminutive, timid lady. We've tolerated bad roads. We've tolerated no roads. We've tolerated the onslaught of humor mixed with pathos and passion. We've done everything. I think too much has been made, as Mukul rightly said in his opening remarks, about all this tolerance thing. What we should really be intolerant about is intolerance itself. What we should really be intolerant about is poverty in our country. What we should really worry about is the subjugation of rights, the subjugation of opportunities. But what's happened today is we're living in media circus times. So if an idiot says something stupid, and there are many across political parties, and my friend Randeep will agree, Congress has its fair share. So if they say stupid things, those become the national discourse. I mean, you had a person in the Union Council of Ministers 3 days ago who says he wants to wage war against Muslims. Now, he's an idiot. He happens to be in the Union Council of Ministers, but that's certainly not what should be used to describe an entire India. Why am I being part of an intolerance discourse when actually I'm not intolerant? Why are we dividing India on lines of caste and creed and religion and exposing every little nuanced statement made by stupid people as the final yardstick of this particular government. And I don't mean this particular government, I mean that particular government. I think too much has been made over the last few days, over the last few months, and there is a bit of an issue there. I'm not for once supporting the fact that the Prime Minister doesn't speak up when he should. I think he should. But that's for the Prime Minister to decide. But I'm also of the opinion that we don't need a media circus playing on our television channels every evening, almost suggesting that the idea of India has either failed or is about to diminish, because the idea of India is stronger than stupid utterances that will be made in a democracy as vibrant as ours, with as many television channels as we do, of course, with the sagacity and wisdom of one particular anchor here. So where are we today in India? I believe intolerance per se has always existed in our DNA. I remember when I was growing up, I'm a Punjabi, but more a Bengali, Ma, Mati, Manush, and I'm not doing a slogan for Mohammad Ali. I remember when I was growing up, I was very intolerant about the Marwadis. I know many of my Bengali friends were intolerant of the Marwadis. Some of them still are. We grudge them their bedmi alu, we grudge them their wealth, we grudge them their ability to get school and club admissions. Thankfully, many of them aren't here, but they are many of my friends. We're intolerant about the way we describe people in our country. Everyone from the Northeast is referred to as chinky. That's intolerance. That's utterly despicable. Everyone south of Vindhyas is a Madrasi. We're intolerant about people's right to dissent. We're intolerant about people's right to disagree. We're intolerant in the manner in which we actually agree to create a more vibrant, more equal, more gender-neutral corporate India. But to use things like the sedition issue that happened at JNU, which, by the way, I've always said was something that was blown out of proportion. It shouldn't have been. I mean, we cannot expect forced slogans to destroy the idea of India. But having said that, that should not be the yardstick to say, oh, why was he arrested? He was arrested because there was a legal anomaly, and the courts will decide. Television channels can't and mustn't decide. So the point that we wish to make today is that we are still a tolerant country. Don't get taken in by this whole mantra of intolerance. There are stupid things that are happening in this country, but the voices of this country will hopefully rectify that. People will understand that basic commodities, basic essentials, basic rights of humanity are more important than beef bans. People will come to realize that you cannot alter the discourse of this country on the basis of one ideology or one principle or one faith. And people recognize that. We have a vibrant democracy. We have a parliament which, when it works, continues to debate some of these issues. But to brand an entire nation as intolerant, to then brand an entire political ideology as intolerant, to my mind, is stupid. We are creating a second partition of India, but this time it's around the hearts and minds, and India at this stage doesn't deserve it. We don't deserve another partition. What we deserve is unity. We deserve diversity of thought, and we deserve the ability to respect contrarian views and contrarian opinions. But to brand contrarian opinions of one ideology as intolerant, to my mind, is equally unfair. So what our premise is this evening is that we need to be more tolerant about the word intolerance. Because what is happening is people are taking polarized positions, and polarity in a pluralistic society never works. It eats at the fundamentals of the democracy that we've taken so much care to build. It eats at the heart of who we are and what we are. And we don't need to look at simple single utterances as being the yardstick to define today's or tomorrow's India, to define who you and I are, or who our families are, or who our children are going to be. The idea of India is far more superior. The idea of India is far greater than prime ministers and presidents. It is rooted and anchored in our history, in our legacy. 3 years in a country's lifetime will not change the idea or the idiom of India, and we need to respect that. We need to move away from this intolerance debate, because this intolerance debate is creating positions which are vicious, to say the least. Media people are being trolled on Twitter. Rightly or wrongly, I don't know. You have people who are now following the Bush dictum. You're either with us or against us. We don't need to divide this country anymore, and that too over intolerance. I'm not for a moment condoning or suggesting that some of these utterances that have been made in the past are deserved. No, they're not. But at the same time, to adopt such a vicious counterpoint to that is equally demeaning to, as I said, the idea of India. The three of us, much as the three of them, including Mukul Kesavan, believe in a composite India. We believe in a holistic India. We believe in an India which is willing to introspect, which is willing to retrospect, which is willing to move ahead. This is the land of ideas. This city gave birth to more ideas which engineered the diversity and the unity of India, more than any other place in India. This city recognizes the power of ideas and equally the weakness of ideas that splinter, that divide, and that are fraught with sensationalism. So when you vote for the motion today, vote with your heart. Vote for an India. Don't vote for stupid statements. Vote for what is real. Don't vote for what is seen. Vote for not the 9 p.m. slot. Vote for the 24/7 idea of India we need to believe in, we need to engender, and we need to perpetrate, because that's the India that will remain. Television channels, newspapers, including Avigdas, will move and live from day to day, but the idea of India will endure. And in that idea of India, we have shown time and again, we are Indians, we are tolerant, and we are respectful of diversity. Utterances should not become the leitmotif of tomorrow's India, as they mustn't of today's. Thank you so much.
Opposing the motion from the other side is Justice Ganguly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start, I must congratulate Suhel Seth for opposing the motion in a way that he has condemned intolerance and supported tolerance. Thank you, Mr. Seth. Anyway, let me start. I'll start with an incident which happened in the state of Kerala in the 60s. You see, in a school in Kerala, national anthem was sung, and three school children, they respectfully stood up to the anthem, but they did not sing. Initially, the school authorities overlooked it till it caught the notice of a patriotic gentleman who happened to be a member of the Legislative Assembly. He raised it in the assembly, and ultimately the students were expelled. They challenged it before the courts, and in Supreme Court, the children succeeded. And the learned judges of the Supreme Court said that these children, as Jehovah's Witness, they are permitted only to sing in prayers to their God, Jehovah, and in no other occasion. This right they had under Articles 19 and 25 of the Constitution. In upholding the rights of the children, the Supreme Court made a very prophetic statement in its concluding part of the judgment, which I am just reading out to you. The Supreme Court said, and I quote, "Our tradition teaches tolerance. Our philosophy preaches tolerance. Our constitution practices tolerance. Let us not dilute it. In the wake of aggressive nationalism of the present scenario, this may sound a little strange to many ears, but this is the crux of tolerance in our Constitution. In our Constitution, you must have known, there is a preamble, which is the substance of the constitutional philosophy. And in the preamble, the greatest emphasis has been given on individual dignity. And individual dignity has been equated with the unity and integrity of the nation. The framers of our constitution thought, and rightly so, that you cannot have a unified, strong nation if you denude the citizens of that dignity. Now, you cannot allow the citizens to maintain their dignity if you rob them of their basic freedoms. If today I become answerable for eating a particular food to some people, or if my house is raided for storing beef, or if I am traveling in a train, my things are searched to find out whether I am carrying beef in the train or not. Where is my dignity? Where is my moral autonomy? Where is my freedom? This is what is happening today, and we condemn this as acts of intolerance. Now, if I become an anti-national by raising a slogan in a campus, or if I become anti-national by supporting somebody's cause which may be unpopular, then that is a clear sign of intolerance. And that intolerance is today is virtually prevailing in the country. Now, the present hysteria which is raised about some students and about some university campus is something which is prompted by clear lack of thinking. And there is nothing known as anti-national. Nobody knows what is meant by anti-national. The word is selectively applied on the basis of subjective opinion of those who are in power. Now, unfortunately today, I am sorry to say, Mr. Seth has already said there are some stupid ministers in the Council of Ministers. I am not saying anybody is stupid, but I am saying that those who have knowledge about India's rich cultural heritage have no power. And those who have that power have no knowledge of the cultural heritage of India. Now look at the question of freedom of speech, which is very important. Supreme Court has defined it very categorically in that Sneha Sehgal's case, where the Supreme Court said that your freedom of speech consists of three elements. First is discussion. It may be a very unpopular thought, but right to discussion is included within your fundamental rights. Discussion, advocacy, you can advocate this cause to another person. But when it reaches the stage of incitement, then you are transgressing beyond your rights. Till it reaches the stage of incitement or some violence, right of discussion, right of advocacy are both within the parameters of constitutional fundamental rights and has to be tolerated. Now we do not see, nobody has said that there was any violence in the campus of JNU when the discussions were going on. But even then, they are clamped charges under sedition. The same thing is true of sedition. This has been clearly explained by Supreme Court in Kedarnath's case, that unless your criticism of the government's work is so violent that it leads to a disruption of public order, sedition charges cannot be slapped. Today I find this Kanhaiya has been charged with sedition charges. I think he is in good company with both Tilak and Gandhi. They were tried for seditious trial. You must have seen that. Now, if I may say in this connection, if I quote Tagore for a minute, what he said about nationalism. I'm just quoting it. He said this when we were not free, when we didn't have our independence. It is my conviction that my countrymen will gain their India by fighting against the education which teaches them that the country is greater than the ideals of humanity. At times, nationalism is a great menace. Now, if Tagore had been alive today, those who are in power might have booked him under charges of sedition. Now, the question here is this. You must, what Voltaire said, I take that to be the real crux of tolerance. Voltaire said that I may not agree with what you say, but will fight to death to support your right to say that. Now, where is that? This gentleman, this Kanaya, when he's produced in court, he's manhandled in the presence of the judge. And some political party chiefs are saying he has done a thing which is no pious thing. The gentleman who has done it should be felicitated. Now, this is the kind of intolerance which is now sweeping across the various educational institutions. Now, do you expect the university students to be patriotic morons? Do they have no right to challenge things? What about Afzal Guru's execution? I am saying as a judge, the way the execution took place, his clemency petition was rejected on 3rd February and the execution took place on 9th February. This is wrong. Without giving him the rights under Article 21, he has the right to challenge it. His family members have a right to be informed about it. The human rights is there. It's still there as long as the noose is not tightened around his neck. What about how his body was cremated? What about his last rites? Now, if anybody questions that, does he become anti-national? If one person raises a slogan, he becomes anti-national and is subject to all kinds of torture, and the way the bail order has been given to this Kanaya by the learned judge speaks very badly of our judiciary. I am very sorry. Judiciary has also come under pressure. What is happening in this country? I condemn intolerance in any form. I think without tolerance we cannot have cultural pluralism, nor can we have multicultural existence in India. India is not meant for these intolerant people. Thank you.
The speaking second for the motion is Kajol.
Good evening, everybody. Hello. First of all, let me say thank you for inviting me to speak at the Telegraph debate. I'm very happy to be here. A little surprised because I am not as prolific as everybody sitting on the bench over here, for and against. I was a little hesitant to accept this invitation, but the Telegraph was insistent, so if I make any mistakes and if I speak any nonsense, it's their fault, not mine. Before leaving for Calcutta, actually, I asked all my dad's Bengali friends as to what I should and should not do at the Calcutta Club, and I was told that you're an actress, so you should just if you have specs, you should wear your specs, and you should not smile too much when you're talking. So that's not going to happen. Sorry. I can't do that, and for the sake of vanity, since I'm an actress, I'm just going to do away with the specs for this evening. I hope I can impress you despite that. I have written down all my notes. I know that there are lots of passionate speakers over here, and they're going to be speaking off the top of their heads, but since I don't have that much experience, and the last debate that I attended was in school, I'm going to be safe, on the safe side, and write down what I have to say. There are many, many types of intolerance. Political intolerance is probably only one of them. And I'll leave the politics to all these people much more well-versed in it than me. I'll speak about the intolerance elsewhere. In case being myself, I've always been an intolerant girl. 20 years ago, I was pictured as a demure and docile Indian girl being brought up in London by a caring and strict father who allowed me to go on my first European trip with friends after much coaxing and cajoling. And there I meet this boy who quite famously held my outstretched hand and pulled me onto the train compartment even as it was pulling away from the platform. But once on the train, he and I were so totally on the wrong track. After all, how could any good Bharatiya nari ever tolerate someone as frisky and flirtatious as a boy called Raj? I mean, come on, with overgrown hair, undergrown manners, from talking non-stop to dropping me on the dance floor to squirting water on my face with a rose. I mean, forget it. He made me so mad. Forget intolerant. Mr. Speaker, sir, the boy I was seriously intolerant of in 1995 was Shah Rukh Khan. And it was only later that I, as Simran, managed not just tolerate him, but also fall madly in love with him because, after all, the Dilwala had to take the Dulhania away. 10 years later, another Khan was to fare far worse than Shah Rukh, of course, in the face of my intolerance. I was then a blind Kashmiri girl who travels with her parents for the first time to Delhi. I meet a Casanova tour guide who I lose my heart to. I get my vision back, but before our marriage, but then everything goes terribly wrong as he's killed in a horrible bomb blast. Years later, I'm living in a remote house in Kashmir, and this man turns up at our door, wounded and on the run. Without knowing who he is, I save his life, and after finding out who he is, I get married to him. Wow. When I finally realize he's a terrorist who ends up killing my father for his mission, I'm so intolerant of him that I don't think twice before putting 2 bullets through him. And that was Amir Khan, and he was so funna. In 1998, I was flying to Paris, despite a serious fear of flying, to get back to the boy I loved. On the flight, I meet this man called Shekhar, a stranger, who was headed home with a stolen necklace. He slips the stolen necklace into my bag, stalks me for days, and manages to irritate me in just so many ways. I was severely intolerant of him until I realized he had a heart of gold under all those brooding silences. And that one line of his, "Aisa hi hu main," just stole my heart. After all, pyar to hona hi tha. A year later, real turned to real, and I was married to this man that you all know as Ajay Devgan. Those who know me and my family have often said that this intolerance runs in our blood. My mother, a Maharashtrian actress, acted in many Bengali films. She was fortunate to earn the affection of the people in Bengal, but she remained completely intolerant. Consider her in the film Deya. She was acting opposite the iconic Bengali hero Uttam Kumar. My mother was an insolent, intolerant, but wealthy girl. And the staff in the house said that she had a military temperament. She has that in real life as well. It wasn't too much of an act. She fell in love with the voice of Uttam Kumar, who was a businessman's son who preferred to sing rather than look after the family business. His father threw him out of the house, and Uttam Kumar took a job at my mother's house. Intolerant girls are not often very clever, exception in this case. And she hardly realized that the person she was in love with was actually her chauffeur. Uttam Kumar tolerated her intolerance, and as it happens in movies, the end was a happy one. Sometimes there are rewards in intolerance. Over a century ago, on the Bengali stage, a great actor was playing the role of an intolerant zamindar. A member of the audience was so agitated that he picked up his shoe and threw it at him. The actor picked up the slipper and touched his forehead to it and said, "Today, my life is truly blessed." The actor was Girish Chandra Ghosh, and the gentleman in the audience was Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, one of the greatest Indians ever. Actually, we all play to a script. You may have seen Spielberg's movie, Who Killed Roger Rabbit? The vamp in the film, Jessica Rabbit, is a cartoon character. And she tells Spielberg, "I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way." So, Speaker Sir, for these reasons, I would like to endorse the motion. There are many types of intolerance, not merely political ones. And there has always been intolerance in India. There are fault lines, we have inequality and poverty, we have social divisions, we have differences of caste, gender, language, religion. And I am not a politician, so I think that to make all the social issues political is absolutely wrong. I also think that we all need to work together to make a stronger and a richer India. Only then will intolerance cease to exist. The debate on tolerance does not recognize this. It has thus become the new intolerance. Once again, Mr. Speaker, sir, I endorse the motion. Thank you.
Can I ask Randeep Surjewala to oppose the motion?
Thank you, Telegraph, the Calcutta Club, Avikda, Chairman Sir, my fellow panelists. I come from a small town, the epicenter of Kurukshetra. It's called the Kaithal Kapisthal. And I was hearing my fellow panelists. I was remembering the Bengal connection. I'm proud of the fact that that the area that I've represented for a long, long time houses the mutt of Maharaj Totapuri, who, as we may know, was the guru of Swami Ramakrishan Paramhans. So as I stand here to oppose the motion, without the finesse of the words that Suhel used, let me recall an incident from his life, Swami Ramakrishan Paramhans. Once when Swamiji was taking a walk on the banks of the river along with his disciples, he saw a scorpion floating in the river. By instinct, he entered the water to pick up the scorpion and to save it. The scorpion stung him. Swamiji moved his hand and it fell back into the water. He tried once again and once again the scorpion stung him and it again fell down. So he took a twig and put the scorpion on the side. So one of his disciples asked him, "Well, the scorpion stung you twice. Why did you still take it out? Why did you save his life?" So I want to recollect what he said. He said, that is the nature of the scorpion. It will sting. It is my nature to help it. And should I give up my nature just because the scorpion stings? I will not. So ladies and gentlemen, shall we give up compassion because another one is cruel? Shall we give up love and affection because another one spurns us? Shall we give up humility because another one is arrogant? Shall we give up tolerance because another one is intolerance? And the answer is plain and simple, no. And while I say this, I'm aware that in today's times, if you are inclusive, if you are tolerant, if you are compassionate, you will be hounded, you will be persecuted, and you will be trolled by those who stridently oppose your compassion and tolerance. But does it mean that the fringe has become the mainstream? Does it mean that if you disagree with the ruling establishment, if I disagree with Suhel, then I am the enemy? Does it mean dissent is anti-national? Does it mean that I need to carry a certificate of patriotism everywhere I go? The answer is again plain and simple, no. While I say this, I'm painfully aware that the fault lines of identity, of religion, of caste, of region, they have become very, very sharp. They have become disdainfully prominent in India. Last 22 months of this government, they have witnessed brutal divisions, ugly hatred, and bloodthirsty violence. On account of this repeated mindless and often heartless attack on 5,000 years of composite culture and compassion, it often appears that this is the mainstream discourse. But is it? Because its intensity and its noise is so strong and so loud that all sanity appears to have been lost in the din. So naturally it looks as if intolerance is the new tolerance. What has happened needs to be examined and has to be understood by the events that have transpired, some of which Suhel referred to, some of which Justice Ganguly referred to, and let me recollect a few. 22 months ago, this government had not even completed the honeymoon when one of the Union Minister, General V.K. Singh, called the army chief a dacoit. Never before in the history of this country had this happened. And let me recollect something else. Successive, and Kajol mentioned some of them, and Suhel mentioned some of them, and let me borrow from them. Successive misogynist and regressive comments have been made repeatedly for India's women that reflect a particular mindset. The then defense minister, and I will never call any minister or anybody senior stupid, but the then defense minister and current finance minister, Mr. Jaitley, called the Nirbhaya incident as one small incident of rape. Not to be outdone, Haryana BJP CM Manohar Lal Khattar, he says if women want freedom, why don't they roam around naked? RSS chief Mr. Mohan Bhagwat in the past has said that rapes rarely happen in Bharat and they occur frequently in India. Former BJP CM and Madhya Pradesh Home Minister Babulal Gaur says rape is sometimes right and sometimes wrong. BJP Goa CM Lakshmikant Parsekar tells nurses not to stand in the sun because they will lose their matrimonial prospects if they get dark. And these can be multiplied. Let me give you one more example. Religious dogma and hatred, they have become most pronounced with a continuing hate agenda against minorities run by the ruling dispensation. And how? Union Minister Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti famously said in Delhi elections that this is a fight between Ramzadas and Haramzadas. I don't know whether it can be dismissed. Very recently, and Suhel referred to it, Union Minister Ram Shankar Kateria, he calls all Muslims demons, calls them the descendants of Ravana, and says they all should be beheaded. Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh, sir, justifies his comments and says they are fine. BJP MP Sakshi Maharaj, he says education of terrorism is being given in madrasas. Union Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi says if you want to go eat beef, go to Pakistan. Mahesh Sharma says, another Union Minister, despite being a Muslim, APJ Abdul Kalam was a nationalist. And these examples can be multiplied. Let me give you one more example. Suppression of voice of Dalits and students appear to have become the norm. General V.K. Singh describes a Dalit child and compares him to a dog. Ambedkar Periyar Study Circle in IIT Madras is banned because they criticize Modi government. BJP National General Secretary P. Muralidhar Rao describes Rohit Vemula as an anti-national. Rohit Vemula is driven to suicide on account of letter written by another Union Minister, Bandaru Dattatray, and the Education Minister, Mrs. Irani. JNU Delhi is called a den of anti-national. Some people call them, all the girls there, as prostitutes. Some others count the contraceptives thrown there. And of course, JNU President Kanhaiya Kumar is charged with sedition. It's a different issue that the video emanates from an aide of the education minister. Let me give you one more example before I conclude. Suppression of free speech, targeting of writers, thinkers, journalists, that has become the new norm. Hundreds of writers, artists and thinkers returned their award. And the finance minister says this is manufactured dissent. Former Union Minister Arun Shuri is trolled for criticizing Modi, and his son, who's suffering from cerebral palsy, even attacked. Gopal Subramaniam is not appointed as a Supreme Court judge because he appeared against Mr. Amit Shah. M.M. Kulbargi, Pansare and Dalbolkar appear to have been killed with the same weapon. Political opponents are persecuted every day. Journalists are persecuted every day. The senior most chief minister of the country, Mr. Veerbhadra Singh, his official residence is raided on a day when his daughter is getting married. Can they succeed? Obviously they can't. India's DNA, as Suhel said, actually India's DNA is about compassion, it's about cohabitation, and it's about coexistence. We are a nation that enabled birth of different religions, adopted many religions, and still thrived. We are a people who calibrated Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sufism, Ahmadiyas, Sikhism, and what not. We co-opted Bhakti, we co-opted Nirgun, we co-opted Valmiki, Kabir, Meera, Tulsi, Auliya. So all that I want to say, I'm confident that no government or organization can take away our DNA of compassion, coexistence and cohabitation. And I'll just quote one line with Chair's permission.
You need to stop.
Let me end by quoting Rabindranath Tagore, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you.
Anupam Kher will now rise to propose the motion.
नमस्कार मैं माफ़ी चाहता हूं, मैं हिंदी में बोलना चाहूँगा, मैं हिंदी में सोचता हूं और अगर बीच में मेरे अंग्रेजी निकल जाए तो आपकी किस्मत अच्छी है. You are talking about, Surjewala ji, you talked about full list of, you have prepared a list of what BJP spoke about. You forgot that 84 emergency was declared by Indira Gandhi, your leader, sir. That was the biggest intolerance in the country ever. All those people were jailed who spoke about against the people who were innocent, people who were journalists, people who were talking about anything. There were whisper campaigns. They were all put behind bars, including my grandfather. You are talking about one by one. You totally forgot. Unfortunately, you know what I think, who is the most tolerant people in this country is Congress. They're tolerating a person who they want to project as a prime minister of this country and can't even say to each other that we are wrong. We are so sorry. This is our prime ministerial candidate. Means they must be talking to each other. क्या करें? फंस गए, कहाँ फंस गए हम लोग भाई? That is the tolerance that you have shown. But show that tolerance once in parliament and let the parliament function, sir. If you can tolerate that person, then you can tolerate anything in the world. You know, this is ridiculous. We have, when I was, आप में से किसी ने भी tolerance word को पिछले 8 महीनों से पहले सुना था या इंटॉलरेंस को? नहीं सुना था. ये मार्केट किया गया है क्योंकि ये हार जो शिकस्त हुई है इतनी बुरी तरह से ऑपोजिशन वालों की, उस शिकस्त का बदला लिया जा रहा है. कैसे लें बदला? प्राइम मिनिस्टर पूरी मेजॉरिटी से जीता है, 282 सीटें आई हैं. एक चाय वाला प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन गया। कैसे बन गया? हम तो गुलाम हैं, हम तो गुलामी की आदत है, हमें अंग्रेजों से, मुगलों से और अब बाहर के कुछ लोगों से हमें गुलामी की आदत है। ये कैसे बन गया प्राइम मिनिस्टर? भाई प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने पिछले 2 साल से या पौने 2 से आज तक छुट्टी नहीं ली है। आई एम नॉट एडवोकेटिंग हिम, आई एम जस्ट स्पीकिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ एज a citizen of this country. People say that you are talking about Mr. Modi because your wife is a BJP. I'm married to Kiran for the last 30 years. I don't have to prove my loyalty to her by talking on behalf of BJP. आपसे बर्दाश्त नहीं होता है कि हमारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर विदेश में जाकर, आपने बर्दाश्त किया 10 साल एक ऐसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर को जो चुप रहा। 10 साल आपने एक ऐसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर को बर्दाश्त किया सरकार। और हमारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो है आज बाहर के मुल्कों में जाकर, जब मैं बाहर कहता हूं क्या बात है आपका प्राइम मिनिस्टर बहुत डायनेमिक है, नॉट बिकॉज ही स्पीक्स वेल, बिकॉज ही टॉक्स अबाउट द आइडिया ऑफ इंडिया। ही हैज नॉट टेकन ए सिंगल हॉलीडे एंड हिज दिवाली इज ऑलवेज स्पेंट इन कश्मीर। ही इज द ओनली प्राइम मिनिस्टर हु हैज विजिटेड कश्मीर थ्राइस ऑन ए दिवाली डे। ये आपसे बर्दाश्त नहीं होता है। सो लेट्स कॉइन अ वर्ड, let's try and sort of get our think tank together. What should we do? We can't, because भ्रष्टाचार की बात ही नहीं हो रही है। पिछले 2 साल से भ्रष्टाचार की कोई बात हुई है क्या? और पिछले 10 साल से सिर्फ भ्रष्टाचार की बात हुई। 2G, 3G, ये जी, वो जी, ओ जी, यही बातें होती नहीं। अब भ्रष्टाचार की बात नहीं हो रही है तो क्या करें? कैसे कोई ऐसा वर्ड निकालें और पूरी दुनिया में फैला दें? We got the word. Let's say that he is intolerant. फैलाओ इसको, फैलाओ इसको, फैलाओ इसको, tolerant, intolerant. So much so that Dada has to talk about intolerance in this Kolkata club. This is a no debate, sir. People are tolerant. You know who are talking about intolerance? The intellectuals, the rich, the famous who travel with 20 bodyguards and talk about intolerance. If you ask about a man on the street, भैया इंटॉलरेंस और क्या इंटॉलरेंस उससे भी डिफिकल्ट वर्ड है असहिष्णुता। भैया हमारे को 2 वक्त की रोटी मिल जाए वही बड़ी बात है, मुझे नहीं बात करनी है इंटॉलरेंस, मैं तो काम करता हूं अपना। तो जो 5 स्टार होटल्स में जो वो कल्चर है, जो डायमंड के स्टड्स पहनते हैं, मैं उनको आई डोंट होल्ड दैट अगेंस्ट देम। वो लोग बैठ के शैंपेन का गिलास सिप करते हुए बात करते हैं, इंडिया हैज बिकम सच एन इंटॉलरेंट कंट्री। अरे आप हिंदुस्तान में बात कर रहे हो, कलकत्ता में बात कर रहे हो या अमेरिका में बात कर रहे हो? वी हैव ए प्रेसिडेंशियल कैंडिडेट इन अमेरिका हु सेज दैट मुस्लिम्स शुड बी थ्रोन आउट ऑफ दिस कंट्री। दैट इज फ्राइटनिंग, दैट इज इंटॉलरेंस। इफ यू हर्ड द स्पीच ऑफ द प्राइम मिनिस्टर रिसेंटली, ही सेड पार्टीज आती रहेंगी, पार्टीज जाती रहेंगी, लेकिन देश जो है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। देश की बात करते हैं हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर, और आपने उसको बाहर का आदमी बना रखा है। सर वो आपके भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैं और चुनकर आए हैं, आपसे भीख मांग के नहीं बोले कि मुझे प्राइम मिनिस्टर बना दो। उन लोगों ने जो कैंपेन किया था, जिन लोगों ने कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर को, नरेंद्र मोदी साहब को वीजा अमेरिका का नहीं मिलना चाहिए, उन सबको असहिष्णुता नजर आ रही है, बिकॉज वो तो बन गए प्राइम मिनिस्टर और उनको वीजा क्या, उनको अमेरिका ने हाथों हाथ लिया, रेड कार्पेट बिछाया, वो गले लगाते हैं ओबामा साहब को। उसमें भी तकलीफ, मुझ पे भी तकलीफ। तो जो भी उसके फेवर में बोले, लेट अस कॉल हिम, लेट अस मेक हिम इनक्रेडिबल, लेट अस मेक हिम दैट, उसकी क्रेडिबिलिटी को खत्म कर दो। अनुपम खेर मार्च निकालते हैं स्वतंत्रता के लिए, हिंदुस्तान के बारे में मार्च निकालते, बोल दो ये तो चमचा है। अनुपम खेर को पद्म भूषण मिलता है, बोलता है इसलिए मिलता है क्योंकि चमचा है। बड़े बड़े लेख लिखे जा रहे हैं, आई नेवर थॉट आई वाज सो इंपॉर्टेंट अ पर्सन। एडिटोरियल लिखे जा रहे हैं। सर, टू यू सर, आप बोलते हैं एंटी नेशनल, और 46 साल के आदमी को आप यूथ आइकॉन बोलते हैं? नहीं सर। जिस दिन राहुल गांधी साहब, मैं चाह रहा था नाम न लूं लेकिन नाम लेना जरूरी है, जिस दिन राहुल गांधी साहब नरेंद्र मोदी के 1/10 भी होंगे, मेरा वोट उनको जाएगा। 5 साल तो दीजिए, काम तो करने दीजिए देश के लिए। 5 साल के बाद निकाल दीजिए बाहर। 5 साल के बाद कहिए हमको ऐसी इंटॉलरेंट सरकार नहीं चाहिए, नहीं चाहिए हमें ऐसी सरकार, निकल जाएंगे। 5 साल काम तो करने दीजिए। आप ये क्या बीड़ा उठा रखा आपने सिर पर, हम तो मैं प्रूफ करके रखेंगे, यहां के नेता ने ऐसा। अरे सर, आपके एमपी ने बोला था किसी दूसरे एमपी को देखकर, श्री दिग्विजय सिंह ने, कि क्या टंच माल है। इससे ज्यादा घटिया बात क्या हो सकती है। मैं वो प्रिपेयर करके नहीं आया हूं लिस्ट कि आपके लोगों ने क्या क्या बोला है। आई एम नॉट डिफेंडिंग दम, जिन्होंने बोला उनको ओम नमः शिवाय, ओम नमः शिवाय, ओम नमः शिवाय, उनको अंदर कर देना चाहिए जिन्होंने इस तरह की बदतमीजी की है। हैं कुछ ऐसे लोग पार्टी में जो बकवास करते हैं, चाहे वो साध्वी हैं, चाहे वो और कोई ना योगी हैं, उनको अंदर कर देना चाहिए, उनको डांटना चाहिए और उनको निकाल देना चाहिए। मगर आप पूरे देश के साथ खिलवाड़ कर रहे हैं ये बोल के कि हमारे देश में बहुत इंटॉलरेंस है, इंटॉलरेंस है। माय फ्रेंड्स, दिस इज अ ग्रेट कंट्री, लेट्स टॉलरेट द इंटॉलरेंस ऑफ दीज पीपल। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Closing for the opposition is Barkhada.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I, first of all, have to ask for your tolerance because I am the last speaker. And I think that you would agree that I have the toughest job. Because you've seen, you've heard, Anupam is a very hard act to follow. And I'm sure you're all sort of itching to draw your own conclusions. But because, as everybody has pointed out this evening, we are a tolerant nation, I'm going to ask all of you to step back from the politics, the theatrics, the histrionics, and actually ask yourself, how did this become about Modi and the Congress? I didn't come here to speak against Modi or in favor of the Congress. I'm sure Anupam didn't come here to speak for Modi and against the Congress. I stand here today as an Indian citizen. Nowhere in the framing of the subject, tolerance is the new intolerance, did I see a reference to Modi? Did I see a reference to the BJP? Did I see a reference to a timeline? Did I see a reference, Suhel, to the idea of India being endangered? These are all cliches. Let's talk instead of the environment that we operate in today. And who has created that environment? Is it politicians or is it all of us? Have we as Indians forgotten the art of conversation? As a television host who presents the 9 p.m. news and goes up in competition against somebody who believes that splitting the screen into 8 boxes and then shouting the loudest is what qualifies as journalism, and the absence of nuance is what qualifies as entertainment, I worry in fact most of all for the intolerance of my own fraternity, the media. I worry at how somehow we have converted news into theater and our narratives have become reductionist, and I'm afraid in this city which prides itself on its intelligence, I know that all of you will agree with me that certain narratives are dumbing us down. We are more intelligent than this nationalism versus anti-nationalism narrative. We are proud Indians and we do not need anybody to certify that for us. Please tell me if you agree. Do you agree? Do you agree? Let's hear that louder. Thank you. Now let me tell you that since we have agreed that we do not need certificates, about a young man I met last night. He's about this short. He comes till my waist. He has a smile that travels up to his eyes, which I usually believe is a sign of a person who's authentic. I asked him, there's a word these days that's become very controversial. That word is called azadi. I said, can you, to this young man, he's 28 years old. I said, can you define to me azadi in one sentence? And you know what he said? Azadi for me is the freedom to implement the Indian Constitution. First, let me ask you, do you all agree with this definition? Do you agree that Azadi is the Constitution and the freedom that it guarantees? Okay. So who said this? a boy charged with sedition called Kanhaiya Kumar. This was his definition of Azadi. Not Azadi from India, but Azadi in India. Now Anupam said, we are making a hero out of such people. I beg to differ. I didn't agree with a lot of what Kanhaiya said in his speech, which all of you must have seen, even though I found it mesmerizing. I didn't agree, and I don't know if it's sacrilege to say this in Bengal, but I guess not because Mamta's in power, because I'm not a Marxist. I'm actually a capitalist. And to that extent, my left liberal friends actually don't like me, because there are many things about me that go militate against the left. I like the army. I cut my teeth as a reporter covering the Kargil war. I've done more than 100 shows on the Indian soldier, and I'm a free marketeer. But along with being a free marketeer, I'm also a free thinker. And the reason somebody like me believes that the government messed up badly on his handling of JNU is A, because the boy they arrested, I think they've got the wrong boy. There isn't a single documentary evidence to show that he raised any slogans about Bharat ki Barbadi or Afzal Guru, except one doctored video played out by 3 television channels who should be ashamed of themselves for reducing the ethics of journalism in doing this. Secondly, let's assume that some slogans were raised that were disturbing. And they were. Do I agree with those slogans? Absolutely not. Do I find them disturbing? Absolutely. But what about hypocrisy? Let me tell you what I mean by hypocrisy. Jai Lalita, known to enjoy a good rapport with the current government, 2 days ago passed an order that Rajiv Gandhi's killers should be released. Convicted terrorists. No one called her anti-national. Prakash Singh Badal, an ally of the BJP, has written letter after letter. 2 hardened convicted terrorists, Rajuana, Bhullar, should be released. Nobody called them anti-national. Mufti Muhammad Saeed, the chief minister of a BJP PDP government, when Afzal Guru was being executed, wrote a letter saying that the execution had been done in unholy haste. ये मैं नहीं बोल रही, ये मुफ्ती साहब ने बोला. उन्होंने आगे बोला कि ये जो एग्जीक्यूशन है ये कश्मीर की हिस्ट्री में एक नेगेटिव, कश्मीर की पेनफुल हिस्ट्री में एक नेगेटिव रेफरेंस पॉइंट बनकर रहेगा. लेकिन बीजेपी ने तो मुफ्ती साहब के साथ सरकार बनाई. तो आप मुझे बताएं कोलकाता के लोग कि अगर मुफ्ती साहब एंटी नेशनल नहीं है, प्रकाश सिंह बादल एंटी नेशनल नहीं है और जयललिता एंटी नेशनल नहीं है, अगर बीजेपी और पीडीपी की अलायंस में एक कमिटमेंट है कि हुर्रियत, आप हुर्रियत को जानते हैं, देयर कश्मीरी सेपरेटिस्ट, हार्डन सेपरेटिस्ट, उनकी अग्रीमेंट में एक कमिटमेंट है कि हुर्रियत के साथ डायलॉग होगा. So you will talk to hardened separatists as a commitment to the PDP. You will allow Jayalalitha to order a release of Rajiv's killers. Rajnath Singh will say he will consider Prakash Singh Badal's petition to release convicted terrorists. But you will lock away 4 students for 4 slogans. Hypocrisy, hypocrisy, hypocrisy. I'm sorry, but this is sheer hypocrisy. Now the bell tells me that I have 3 minutes left. And with apologies to my friend Randeep, I want to say something here. What I want to say is that first we saw this word called secularism being corroded by competitive politics. I call 1984 and 2002 the bookends of our debate around secularism, within which both of these parties have played competitive politics and corroded the notion of secularism. Now, I'm afraid the same thing is being done with nationalism. There were pseudo-secularists, now there are pseudo-patriots. And in this way, we see these slogans that we took for granted actually getting politicized and corroded. I stand here as a citizen, certainly not as a supporter of the Congress or a supporter of the BJP or for that matter any other party. I think the emergency was shameful. I think the censorship of the satanic verses was shameful. I think the way Babri Masjid was coordinated between the BJP and the Congress, with Rajiv Gandhi allowing the unlocking of the masjid and the BJP bringing it down, both in our history have to take the blame for that. And are we going to step back We, the people who are tolerant, who want to live and let live, who want to let people wear what they want, and yes, eat beef if they want. In Bengal, you can say this, but today you can't say this in Delhi. You can't say this in Uttar Pradesh. How shocking is it that in Uttar Pradesh, the meat in Dadri, in Akhlaq's fridge, was sent for testing to see whether it is beef or mutton. What sort of country have we become where the meat is more important than the manslaughter? And this has nothing to do with any political party. This has to do with the politicization of all values that are dear to me as an Indian. Secularism was dear to me, my politicians took it away from me. So today I say pluralism. Nationalism was dear to me, but today the people who are expecting that we will conform to their notions of nationalism have taken away that word from me, and I will have to look for another word. And I turned to Kanhaiya, who gave me the definition, and he said, nationalism is borrowed from Europe. It's a borrowed idea based on a single entity. India is many nations within a nation. Let's use the word patriotism instead of nationalism. Let us stop this false binary that if we raise questions about how JNU was handled, we are against the Indian soldier. I am committed to the military and I reject this false binary, but I am also committed to being a free thinker, to individual liberty, and my lament today is that there is no truly liberal party in India. I wait for the day when a party would have the guts to stand up for the right of people to eat whatever they want to, dress how they want to, sleep with who they want to, love who they want to. As for questioning Supreme Court judgments, I certainly question the Supreme Court judgment on 377. So we can question Supreme Court judgments. And I will end now by quoting one of the most well-known contemporary philosophers of our time, Karl Popper, who spoke about how too much tolerance is a bad thing. And I will just read this out and then end. The paradox of tolerance. Unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance with them. We should therefore claim in the name of tolerance the right not to tolerate the intolerant. We should claim that any movement preaching intolerance places itself outside the law, and we should consider incitement to intolerance as criminal in the way that we consider murder and kidnapping. With that, I rest my motion.
I think we can all agree that we've had a wonderful debate. It's been a debate that's been political, as these debates must be. It's a debate which has had its moments of humor. It's a debate that's been enormously passionate on both sides. It's a debate that's seen judicial reasoning and real passion. I think it can be safely said that there are, on either side of me, 6 people who are passionately committed to a civilized society. Where they disagree on is that in the context of the present political moment, are the charges of incivility or intolerance being justly made? And I think we saw from the right side of the House an argument from both Suhel and from Anupam, an argument which said that you cannot brand isolated incidents into a generalization about the nature of India. And I think we saw from Kajol an argument towards the end of this, of her talk, where she said, let's not club together incidents of social intolerance with political motivation. I think from my left, we saw a series of varied arguments. We had Justice Ganguly, who began with this very moving example of the national anthem and the Jehovah's Witnesses in Kerala, who argued that individual dignity, in a sense, and individual moral autonomy had to be maintained through freedom. We had Randeep Surjewala, who made a robustly political argument indicting the BJP, citing a sequence of instances where he felt that they had in fact behaved in an intolerant way. We had Barkha Dutt ending this debate for us by arguing that we shouldn't be trapped in the binaries of political parties, that both dominant political parties in our country have contributed to intolerances of various kinds, that we should instead reach for values that are not partisan. And she saw an exemplar of not non-partisanship, but a willingness to look at the great categories of our time, liberalism, leftism, nationalism, in the example of Kanhaiya Kumar. Now the time has come to put this motion to you, the House. The proposition was, tolerance is the new intolerance. So the way I'm going to do it is this: all those who agree with this side of the House, raise your hands. All those who agree with this side of the House, please raise your hands. I'm not very good at this visual thing. Can we do this again? Hold on a minute. Put your hands down. Put your hands down. So, do not be incited by Suhel Seth. All those who are for the motion, please raise your hands. Only one hand. All those who are against the motion, raise your hands. Okay, the third time is the charm. All those for the motion, raise your hands. All those against the motion, raise your hands. It's not clear to me, Suhel. All right. We are going to declare this debate a dead heat. Thank you for your participation.